And it's time for Lefties Losing It. We've got something unbelievable from the ladies of The View shortly, but let's start with a woman who the media told you was qualified to be president, the woman they painted as competent and inspiring. Here is Kamala being Kamala.
So we did DoorDash because I wanted Doritos. And the red carpet part was about to start. Nobody wanted to leave to go to the grocery store. So it was DoorDash. And I'm thinking about this, so I was willing to give up whatever might be the tracking of Kamala Harris's particular fondness for nacho cheese Doritos for the sake of getting a big bag of Doritos as I watched the Oscars.
That is just mind-numbing. I think I lost 20 to 30 IQ points just listening to that. Now let's hear from ageing British pop star Bob Geldof. He goes on an unhinged Trump rant, spewing all sorts of lies and hyperbole and nonsense about Donald Trump and Elon Musk, literally taking food from the mouths of starving children, he says. He really is too old to be this thick.
Creeps like Trump and Musk have sucked out all of that generosity out of the air, you know. The most powerful man on the planet, the richest man in the world, have decided to take away any of the life support systems of the poorest children on the planet. Quite literally take the last food from their mouth, quite literally take the bandages off the gang-raped woman, quite literally stop AIDS, 5 million AIDS sufferers getting their thing. So they will die in a matter of weeks.
This is the USAID cuts you're
This is
talking
Trump and Musk and all those other creeps.
Now, if you were ever in any doubt about just how intellectually barren, how exceptionally stupid The View co-hosts are, then watch this performance from Whoopi Goldberg, real name Karen Johnson. As she explains to trans activist Dylan Mulvaney, she doesn't understand why anyone could have any issue with men in women's sport.
I wanted to ask you, because there's been all of this debate about whether transgender athletes should be able to compete. And last week, California Governor Gavin Newsom said that he thinks that trans athletes competing in girls' and women's sports was deeply unfair.
Oh, she wasn't done yet. Then she explains that men don't really have a physical advantage when competing in women's sporting competitions.
When you come in and you say, oh, you know, these are men, you know, competing against women, you're assuming that the women are weak and just can't do anything except be here. Have you seen female athletes? They know what they're doing. So I'm not sure what's going on or why this is an issue.
I think even Dylan Mulvaney was wondering what the hell she was talking about there. You don't know what's going on, Whoopi. You don't know why this is an issue. Have you been hiding in a cave for the past decade when this issue has been discussed at length? You think just because female athletes are stronger and faster than the average female that they have no issue competing with male bodies? Are you crazy? You do realise that female gold medalists at the Olympics would be beaten easily by the top high school track athletes. Easily by the top high school male track athletes, I should add. Let's not forget Australia's national soccer team, the Matildas, lost 7-0 to a bunch of high school boys from Newcastle, the under-15 boys, that was. As for Dylan Mulvaney, I'm starting to feel a little bit sorry for him, even though he's trying to inject himself into International Women's Day. This isn't what real women do.
Is this a good time? Oh my God, this is the best day of my life. Happy International Women's Day. Best International Women's Day ever. Ooh, I gotta do my hormone injection, which we love the hormones, but we do not like the nausea that accompanies the hormones. And I have a long drive to the airport, so wish me luck. That's gonna be rough.
Now, the leftist media activists and propagandists who championed Joe Biden for years are finally telling the truth about what sort of man he really is. Listen here as Chuck Todd tells us what he really thinks.
And when I realized that not one, not two, but 3 Biden children, and I count Bo's widow, we're all dealing with drug problems in 2018. And Joe Biden said, now's a perfect time to run for president because who cares about our family? I have to tell you something about Joe Biden. There's this mythology about Joe Biden that the man cared so much, it's all that he was this incredible family man. And instead, what he really was a craven political animal that never, it was desperate. The man considered or ran for president every 4 years he was eligible. You know why he didn't run in 76? He wasn't 35 yet. That's the only reason.
I don't recall hearing that frankness, that honesty during Chuck Todd's many, many years at NBC. But it wasn't just Chuck Todd. Then stage 4 TDS sufferer Steve Schmidt joined in, saying that he doesn't even trust Joe Biden's children to babysit.
What I said to the group that made them gasp, I said, I have 5 kids. And if I had to leave 12-year-old alone, if I had to leave the kids with someone, and my choices are Hunter Biden or Ashley Biden or Don Jr. and Eric and Laura Trump, like, I'm dropping the kids off at Don and Eric and Laura's house.
Wow, if only these two were forthcoming with this sort of information when it actually mattered. Joining me now is comedian and host of Primetime with Alex Stein on Blaze TV. Alex, the cowardice of these leftist activists, some of them masquerading as journalists, is astounding. What's even the point of saying all this now?
Well, if you look at Chuck Todd, I believe he worked at NBC for 18 years, and I think that he was let go in January because, you know, obviously he was trying to keep the mainstream narrative that Joe Biden was competent for office when in reality, everybody knew that Hunter Biden was a drug addict. Everybody knew that Joe Biden was basically a deadbeat dad, for lack of a better word. And they had to lie to try to paint a picture that he was a competent president. And now Chuck Todd is realizing, listen, I lied. My integrity is totally gone. So he's doing this to save face. And that's why he's all of a sudden changed his tune. So I didn't believe him the first time. And really, I honestly don't trust what he's saying now either.
Well, yeah, because it wasn't just that Joe Biden was competent. That was the only lie they were telling. They were also telling us he was this warm, loving father and grandfather who, let's not forget that he doesn't even acknowledge one of his own grandchildren, a little girl down in Arkansas. Now to the Democrats' new darling. She's the new AOC, so you might have a crush on her because I know you like AOC, Alex. And she's been saying plenty about immigration, illegal immigration. She doesn't even think it's illegal.
It is not a criminal violation to enter the country illegally. It's not a criminal. It's a crime. It's not a crime.
That's Jasmine Crockett. She's gaining herself quite a profile, and she's dead wrong because it is a crime. You think a congresswoman would know that. Here is Border Czar Tom Homan.
Is it a crime or a misdemeanor to enter the country illegally?
It's a crime to enter the country illegally on Title 8, United States Code 1325, and it's really pathetic that any member of Congress don't understand what the law says. They wrote the law. They enacted the law. It was signed by the president. It's a criminal violation to enter the country illegally. If you've entered it prior, it's a felony.
Alex, the Democrats continue to rail against the deportation policy. It's hardly a winning strategy.
No way, Rita. It's definitely not a winning strategy. And, you know, Jasmine Crockett is actually the representative of the district that I have an office in. So it's really sad that she even got elected. It's obviously, it's in South Dallas. It's a predominantly African-American, lower income area. Not realizing that just coming into the country illegally is a crime. That shows you that you don't have to pass an IQ test to become a congresswoman. You can just win based on either the color of your skin or because of the way that you act. And, you know, you win an election in a place where the voters are going to be favorable to you, but it does not mean that she's smart. And I think that the more she talks, the more we realize, you know, how dumb Jasmine Crockett really is. And I hate to call her that, but I think it's just obvious with her statement saying that when a person comes into our country illegally, they're not committing a crime. It's just a very basic, simple concept. You come in here illegally, that's a crime, you're a criminal. I don't know why this is so complicated and hard for them to understand.
I don't know if she's dumb or not, but she may have watched AOC say plenty of dumb stuff and see her profile rise and her influence within the party increase. So maybe she just wants to replicate that. We'll see. Now, the left cannot help themselves, Alex. There appears to be no self-control, no sense of decorum. Watch here as activists harass Vice President JD Vance as he walks with his 3-year-old daughter near their home in Ohio. He very graciously offers them a few minutes of his time to talk about what's troubling them if they will leave him and his daughter alone.
Ma'am, look at my 3-year-old daughter now, and I told you, I talked to you for 5 minutes, and now, I did not agree to have my 3-year-old to have people run around and yell at her, and I did talk to you, and I had said, if I talk to you for a few minutes, will you leave my 3-year-old daughter alone? And you said yes. So I'd like you guys to respect that.
The Vice President tweeted saying that it was a mostly respectful conversation, but if you're chasing a 3-year-old as part of your political protest, you're a shit person. This is not the way, Alex, to convince politicians, and I don't think it's the way to convince the general public about the righteousness of your cause if you do that, because no one wants to see a 3-year-old be distressed by this sort of behaviour.
Oh, exactly. You're exactly correct. And, you know, there's a saying, when you give a mouse a cookie, you got to give him milk. You know, JD Vance was more than gracious to even give them a moment to speak and have a conversation with them. And of course, they can't just have the conversation and be over. They have to start attacking him. They have to make the 3-year-old feel uncomfortable, because some of these people, they're incapable of actually having a civil conversation. And just the fact that the sitting vice president is willing, you know, to sit there and talk to you, you would think, even if you disagree with him ideologically, you would show him enough respect, considering the office that he's holding. And then forget about it. You can be disrespectful to the vice president, but to his 3-year-old daughter, it just shows that these people have no empathy whatsoever, other than, you know, what they personally feel. They care about feelings, just their feelings, not that of a 3-year-old or the vice president, who's being gracious and actually having a conversation. I don't know any other politicians on the left that, if you actually talk to them, and I've tried to, Rita, you know that I've tried to talk to these politicians outside of, you know, Congress and stuff. They don't ever want to have a conversation, and JD Vance did. So that shows you that he is a guy that does have integrity and that is actually willing to speak to his constituents and try to help and represent them the best way that he can.
Now, you've chased down plenty of politicians from both sides. I've seen you go after Dan Crenshaw, a Republican from Texas, and that's been quite colourful at times. But if there was a child present, would you still pursue them with a camera? I mean, I just think if there's a little child that age, a toddler, you just walk away. It's just not the time.
You're absolutely right. And in no instance have I ever confronted a politician while they were with their daughter or child. I mean, it's unfair to the kid, and you're going to make them feel uncomfortable. So, like I said, JD Vance was more than gracious enough to even speak with him. But these people are just so insane that they can't even rationalize how big of a deal it is that they're speaking to the sitting vice president and show him respect and his 3-year-old daughter some respect.
Now, staying in your home state of Texas, all drag performances have been banned from 11 campuses of Texas A&M University. This is quite a momentous announcement, because though you would think a college like this in Texas would be fairly conservative, these college campuses, almost all of them, are not. They're just hotbeds of left-wing activism. So to have drag performances effectively banned from college campuses, what are your feelings about this, Alex?
Well, I'm really happy. And of course, you know, I believe in the First Amendment. I believe in, you know, freedom of speech. But when it comes down to a Texas public school, which Texas A&M is, we don't need our school system trying to spread LGBTQ ideology to young people on campus. It's just unnecessary for the state to sponsor that. And Donald Trump spoke out against it. You know, the Attorney General, Ken Paxton, spoke out against it. So if these people are saying, we don't want this on our state public schools, thank goodness that finally somebody's putting their foot down and stopping it, because when it comes to all the disgusting books that are in public libraries that parents are constantly fighting against, in college, these are adults, but this is still a public school. Our public funds are going to this, and really, I don't want my public funds going to draggy land so more kids can get indoctrinated into this, trans ideology.
Well, we see it in Australia from very young, from sometimes preschool all the way through to university, this sort of left-wing activism that is evident in the curriculum, it's on the campus, it's just shoved down the kids' throats from a young age through to their postgraduate degrees if they go that far. How much of a change has there been under the Trump administration? Because he's made it clear that funding decisions are going to be attached to these policies, and a lot of the universities have resisted, but others like Texas A&M are changing their ways.
Well, Rita, as you just showed earlier, it's making monumental change because you have the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, who's getting railroaded, and a lot of people like Whoopi Goldberg are complaining because he said that it's unfair for biological women to have to compete against transgender men, which is not a crazy concept, but according to Whoopi Goldberg, she just can't wrap her head around the fact that men are bigger and stronger on average and would have a physical advantage in a physical sport. So listen, this issue is huge. Donald Trump is waking up people like Gavin Newsom, where they're having to have intellectually honest conversations with people like Charlie Kirk, and it's changing the narrative. And I know that you're not anti-trans. I'm not anti-trans. I understand trans people exist, but there needs to be a system where women can compete fairly against other women, and we don't need young kids being indoctrinated into what I call a trans cult. So I think that the tide is shifting, and we're heading in the right direction, but we still have a far way to go.
Now, this next story, Alex, reminded me of you instantly, because I think this is the sort of shenanigans you would have pulled as a youngster. Have a look at this video. A child called the cops on his own mum, asking for her to be locked up because she ate all the ice cream. Watch this future Alex Stein.
Hi.
Oh, it's the police. They came for real.
Yeah, we have to just come check, make sure everything's okay.
Hey, what you do?
Did you call the police?
Yeah.
Why?
I told my mommy to go to jail.
Why do you want mommy to go to jail? She hit you, or is it because you didn't get ice cream yet?
I didn't get ice cream.
So is that why you're upset?
Yeah, that's why I didn't get no ice cream.
Oh, get the little one.
No, it's so hard to yell at them.
A police, yeah.
So no calling 911 unless it's a real emergency, okay?
Oh dear, he needs a spanking, that boy, if you believe in that sort of thing. Alex, that 4-year-old from Wisconsin, he did get his ice cream. The police officers came back with some ice cream for him. Just a nice way to end our little segment.
No, it was great. Thank you to those cops. But you gave me PTSD. I remember when I learned what 911 was, I called it and they came to my house. And Rita, talk about a spanking. I still have bruises from that spanking.
And you would have deserved it. Alex Stein, thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Rita. Always a pleasure.
Joining me now is Sky News contributor Kosha Gator. Kosha, let's start with Malcolm Turnbull, the feud between Malcolm Turnbull and US President Donald Trump. Now, the Prime Minister, the former Prime Minister, did start this war of words with some ill-advised attention-seeking. He was on US TV just doing what he does. Not sure what he was trying to achieve there, but in response, President Trump posted this on Truth Social saying Malcolm Turnbull, the former Prime Minister of Australia, who was always leading that wonderful country from behind, never understood what was going on in China, nor did he have the capacity to do so. I always thought he was a weak and ineffective leader, and obviously Australians agreed with me. Yes, we did. And Turnbull then went on the ABC. Of course he did, and he had this to say.
Are we just going to become, just a conga line of sycophants creeping through the White House?
Oh dear, you can just know he rehearsed those lines in front of the mirror. What will this attention-seeking by the former Prime Minister do to our negotiations with the US? We do want this tariff exemption. Will this hurt or hinder that, or will it have absolutely no impact?
I think it certainly doesn't help. Is it the core driver probably not. That's economic policy and where Team Trump stands on that. But these things don't help. Trump, we know, I think everybody, but especially him, is a beast of policy and personality, whether it's Zelensky in the Ukraine, who he doesn't have a lot of fondness for, whether it's people over here, whether it's Kevin Rudd, who we know has sparred with him as well. This just adds to that. It's probably not good form for former prime ministers to come in and muddy the waters anyways, just making the job difficult of the current administration. And most people will never win against Trump in a war of words. They just will never win. So it's just better to keep quiet and let the administration do what it's doing.
And as he said previously, he's holding all the cards right now. We're the ones who are wanting something. So I would suggest let's just be a little bit more diplomatic for the time being. Now, let's talk about the horrific scenes in Syria of armed men loyal to the government, rounding up religious minorities, torturing, slaughtering them. They're talking about purifying the country as they kill men, women and children. Kosha, this was sadly predictable. We've seen tyrants removed in countries like Iraq and Libya to be replaced by something even worse. And is that what's happening now in Syria?
Appears to be predictable, predicted. Many people on camera repeatedly have said this and called for this over the years, Trump and Tulsi Gabbard being two more prominent examples. And, you know, the U.S. is at a crossroads in terms of its foreign policy approach. And we've had the 40, 50 years of policing the world, invading the world, inviting the world in through immigration. And now we're breaking away from that, clearly, with Trump and his team, about non-interventionism. And one reason is just economic, that we're stretched too thin and it's really none of our business to be doing that when there's so many domestic problems. The other reason is what you're seeing here, that we live in a very complicated world and often the choice between leaders in these hotspots is not between good and evil, but it's between bad and worse. Yeah. And we go in removing the, quote, bad guy, and often you have no idea who's on the other side or what's going to happen and which types of actors are going to fill that void, and then you just create a bigger mess, which further supports the argument of the other side that wants the U.S. to keep policing and invading, and then that downward spiral continues. I don't know what Trump administration is going to do here because they inherited this mess, but it looks like they are going to stick to less interventionism, not more.
Well, there's some foreign policy experts and former leaders who look like absolute fools at the moment, the ones who celebrated what happened in Syria just a few weeks ago as if it was the dawn of some new age of democracy, not looking at who was actually seizing power. And you mentioned Tulsi Gabbard. It was only a couple of months ago that she warned about what could occur.
No tears for the fall of the Assad regime, but today we have an Islamist extremist who is now in charge of Syria, as I said, who danced on the streets to celebrate the 9/11 attack, who ruled over Idlib with an Islamist extremist governance, and who has already begun to persecute and kill and arrest religious minorities like Christians in Syria.
I understand.
Why that should be acceptable to anyone is beyond me.
And Donald Trump was warning about this some 10 years ago.
So I've watched Assad, and I've watched a little bit on the other side. The problem is the other side of Assad, we have no idea who they are. They probably are racist. I'm saying, are we better off with Assad? We have no idea who these people are. We give them weapons, we give them ammunition, we give them everything. Aaron, we have no idea who, I mean, maybe it's worse than Assad. So what are we doing? Why are we involved? We have to get rid of ISIS, very importantly. But I look at Assad, and Assad, to me, looks better than the other side. And, you know, this has happened before. We back a certain side, and that side turns out to be a total catastrophe. Russia likes Assad seemingly a lot.
Kosha, I think it was Tony Abbott who said it's baddies versus baddies when talking about Syria. And sadly, you know, it might seem simplistic, but it's the reality of what's happening there. And the West just keeps making this same mistake over and over again. Now, meanwhile, in Romania, the leading candidate there, Călin Georgescu, has been banned from running in the upcoming presidential election in May. Kosha, this is a NATO nation. It's supposed to be a democratic nation, but this candidate won the first round. That was deemed illegitimate for some reason. They were claiming there was Russian interference, and now banned from running, the front runner.
This is a pretty stunning development. And when you do things like that, you annul an election that was conducted freely, and then you ban the candidate from running again. It is not a consequence-free action that they're taking over here, because what they're doing is creating a pressure cooker environment in the nation where at least a certain faction of the citizenry is having a lid put on their demands, and there's no venue for them to redress their grievances. That is not going to end well. It never does when you look throughout the span of history. And you can see protests right now happening in Romania, people taking to the streets. So, buckle up for more unrest, and hopefully, worse things could happen. We hope not. It also very much validates J.D. Vance and the comments he's been making in Munich and other venues recently about why are we underwriting so-called democracies in Europe, and this phrase, let's not be a threat to democracy, let's defend democracy, has become a chant almost. And the louder they chant it, it's because these things are happening in these European countries and others, and the whole world can see it.
Absolutely. And I think the Trump administration is watching on very closely here. Now, the Democrats are coming out in support of a pro-Palestinian activist blamed for some of the violent protests at Columbia University. The Trump administration wants to deport this character, but the Democrats are fighting for him to stay in the US. And earlier today, a federal judge did temporarily block Mahmoud Khalil's deportation, and has been arrested over the weekend by immigration agents. Kosha, I just cannot believe the Democrats would come out and try to protect this guy from deportation. I mean, how crazy can you get just as far as electoral popularity? I mean, you are in politics, you do want to appeal to the American people, and we know where they stand on this. To try to stop the deportation of someone who's come into the country, who's causing trouble. We've seen the violent protests at Columbia University. What's the thinking behind this for the Democrats?
So politically, it's not a good move. And, there are all these memes all over the internet where they wouldn't stand for the boy who was fighting cancer, for example.
13-year-old
wouldn't stand, or for Laken Riley's parents or family members and others. And then over here, they're going to town on this. So politically, I think it is a big problem because they're out of step with what people want. Where this issue gets a little bit interesting, and it's actually one of the few where Trump's base is splitting a little bit, is what are the two forces at play? So one is zero tolerance for illegal behavior by immigrants, certainly illegal immigrants, but also legal immigrants like this person, and really using the full weight of deportation power to deport them. The other is free speech, which is a big value, obviously, in the Trump base. And there are questions about legally what did this person actually do, and if it was just limited to speech and signs, as vile and unhinged as they may be, that is a constitutionally protected right in the U.S., or did he do something more? Does he have some actual ties where he was aiding and abetting Hamas, in which case he violated some terrorism laws, and that would be the thing. So I think the judge is trying to adjudicate that. This judge might have something to stand on, unlike all the other unhinged judges who are just rushing to challenge Trump's Article 2 powers. But we shall see. We probably don't know everything that the government has on this person, and I think this story will continue to develop.
But that comparison between them taking a stand for this character, but not people who've been victims of their policies, like Laken Riley's parents, I mean, it just speaks volumes. And Kosha, the Democrats are in all sorts of trouble. Political analyst Van Jones summed up their current situation on CNN, and he is from the left, but he is sane enough to realise this.
Can we talk about Ukraine or something? No. Look, man, we're screwed. I mean, we don't know. No, Democrats don't know what to do. This is a nightmare. The Democratic Party is going through a massive set of internal crises. You have a party that got trapped two ways. One, defending a broken status quo that nobody likes because they thought that Donald Trump was going to make it worse. But when you're defending the status quo, you're going to lose. And then offending most people in the country, calling everybody sexist and racist and transphobic and every other name, and then saying, please follow us. That's not a good strategy, folks.
He makes an obvious point there, but that they are in a crisis at the moment, and they've got to get their act together because the midterms aren't that far away. You need to be prepared.
Van Jones can be sage from time to time. You see those glimmers of honesty over there. And I think it worked for them for a period of time, trying to paint the other side as irredeemable, going back to Hillary Clinton and everything they did against Trump, as well as maybe defending this idea that the other side, the Democrat side, is more normal and less chaotic, and that whole line worked for a period. So they keep doing that, but it didn't this time. It didn't last very long. They've been beaten back, and they don't really seem to have a leader, too. Like right now, it's hard to know who is the leader of the Democrat Party that can corral them and herd the cats and align on one message. So they're out there in the wilderness, but not for long. I'm sure they will regroup and come back with a vengeance.
Kosha Gator, thanks so much for your time tonight.